how do you know what to set your prices at? So when I was first, Anik, okay. Anik, please.
I mean, it entirely depends where you are in your business, first off. But at the same time, you should always be influenced by what kind of business you want to be and what kind of clients you want to attract. And so, even when I was starting, I poked around and found out the going rate, 15 years ago for a bookkeeper that was getting started in my area was $25 an hour. So I started at $35 an hour because I knew I was better than the average bookkeeper, right? And so I think at the beginning we start with comparison, but at some point in our business, we need to shift that to, make it worth it for me to be doing this instead of something else, you know, like, especially when, in the bookkeeping industry, I have a friend who's near semi-retirement, right? And so I keep reminding her that she doesn't care about closing that potential client, that she can stop acting as if it matters because she's okay with letting the business start slowing down and just looking towards semi-retirement. So at some point we got to determine like our own scale of how much is it worth it for me to be working instead of doing something else.
Good point. Well, I know when I first started that people kept telling me I had to pick my niche. And so, but I'm the kind of person that likes variety and that didn't want to just do these businesses. And so what I did is I flipped it and said, who do I not want to work with? So I decided it was restaurants because they come and they go, retail, people that have a lot of inventory, right? Because I really feel that they need a boots on the ground kind of accounting support. And then e-commerce. So that leaves still a lot out there for me, and found my way some different kinds of trades and different all sorts of. I have like somebody that writes grants, and it's really interesting. But I suffered just like everybody does from imposter syndrome, and I was afraid to set my prices where they should be, and so it took me about a year to become comfortable with that. But I also realized that not only was I struggling with imposter syndrome, I was also doing myself a disservice because I ended up with a couple of clients that I ultimately had to fire because they took up too much of my time and they weren't paying me enough. And so I finally had to say, oh, you gotta go. So that kind of gave me the cojones I needed to say toodaloo. I tried raising my prices and they wanted to pay the prices. So I finally just had to say, I'm sorry, but you have to go. So, but I did find, people don't know to think of you. If they don't know to think of you, networking is super important. That's why I think Alignable and these kind of opportunities, professional networks like BNI and, your local clubs that are in your area are really important. If you can get to be involved in your community. I like to do a lot of nonprofit work. And believe it or not, that really leads to some pretty interesting people who actually are business people who actually understand the value of something. So, and what I do. And that for the price that I think that people should be minimum of $600 a month for bookkeeping, it really is phenomenal support that you're getting on a fractional basis. You couldn't get this in the real world, in a corporate world. So, I'm encouraging the bookkeepers. You'll see, Justin, on my site, I have my pricing. It's not a suggested pricing. It is the pricing. So if I get people that say, well, I'd love to work with you and your team because you'll be part of my team. But I really need to pay a little bit less. I will say, I appreciate your perspective. However, my prices are non-negotiable. So I wish you well. Toodaloo. So that way I'm getting people that I really know you'll want to work with. So, I can be, I don't want to say the bad guy, but I can be the person that breaches that first uncomfortable discussion of pricing. Is that, it's awkward for all of us, me still included. Recently I finally raised my prices after a couple of years and I was nervous about it, but you know what? everybody was fine with it. Probably should have done it sooner, is the lesson there. So, so let's see. Tristan.
I bet there's few things that will endow more confidence than raising your prices to get rid of someone and them saying, no, we're staying, and then going so far as to say, you know what? I think I meant to say we break up, not that I wanted to change anything. And I think everyone should go through that. Even if they lose a client, they'll probably be happy long term. I take a very, very, very pedantic view on pricing. Normally with a client, I honestly am lucky if I can get out of it in 45 minutes, because the core of this question is price what you do. Ask someone what they do, and good luck even them getting that refined to any level of like level 3 clarity. You might get level 1s, maybe some level 2 specifics, but even then they're trying to dig into a third example. So first and foremost, I like to do, well, what are broad ones? All industries have an expectation of costs for their business. You can research and see that most companies find it acceptable to pay X percentage against revenue against something. So you can go the statistical route, which I like. For instance, I don't want Focus Flow Alliance to be more than 5% of someone's annual revenue. Okay, I reverse engineered that. It's $300 a month. My target audience is 70K to 100K, period. And I think anyone who's like, well, 5% is too much for that much value, awesome. I'm not selling it. I'm just showing it. And then I'm definitely going to steal some from Anita, but I'm hoping she'll raise her hand, so I'm just going to kind of tickle around it. There are services that we do that are one sentence, like an audit, and then there are follow-up services. But here's the big one. There is speed of services done and speed of feedback. I think SLAs are really where it's at. Most people don't want to talk to you at all. So if you want to do as much like introverted work as possible, you can always sell. It's impossible to get a meeting for me, and this is why my prices are here. And immediately scale up. FaceTime has value. Realize that this is not like, people think it's all very solid and they're all pronouns and whole things. It's not. It's a lattice work. It's a grid. It's so many things. And I think what's most important is like actually getting it out. What is the thing that you sell most often that you like that takes the least amount of effort? I would focus on that one right off the bat, because it's a highly efficient until you can't sell it. What is the thing that you really want to do, but you have no clients for? Perhaps you should start marketing that, but again, all of those prices are a lot like Ina said. You can use a percentage against someone's business, but I mean, Success Strategy by Design charges $500 an hour. I'm going to sit with you, hear what you say, and tell you what I think, and then maybe write emails for you. A lot of people look at me like I'm crazy, and everyone who I work with sleeps well at night, every single night, because they know that there's no problem that they can come up to where I can't give them the heads up and also appropriately communicate with all the people that are going to get in the way. A lot of people don't see a value in that, and then everyone who experiences it does. So when thinking about value, remember, it's got to do with us, it's got to do with what we do, and it's got to do with money. If there were anything in the world that we are so subjective to being heavily influenced by, it's all of those things. So really disconnecting from it through being analytical or practical, very useful. Very, very useful. You should not associate with the price, because you can't non-associate your value with that. So I try to remove it to everything I can, and then just start figuring out what you like doing and not doing. And then price accordingly and ask for too much. Remember one thing, if you are charging less and working hard, what is the likelihood that you are going to be interested in working harder for no more money? Now, this person might be very unhappy that they're paying a little more than they want, but I'm never worried about me having the resources to cover up if I need to do more. I'm not going to be mad at this person where they're like, is this also possible? X, Y, Z. So there's a lot to think about pricing. It's not just what am I worth, which is, by the way, why is this so hard? That was a horrible way to end it. You shouldn't think about it as what you're worth. There's a lot of ways to measure it, and don't do it in a vacuum. That's why it takes like 45 minutes. Do a bunch of measurements, and then you look at them like an adult and like, oh, obviously these are probably the answers now that I've done the realization and rationalization for everything else. But you can't skip that process, people. You have to take the time. It's like math. You actually have to do the equation to find out all of the answers. You can't just jump.